Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. This is the Microsoft 365 Platform Community Call for September 7th. I'm your host, Brian T. Jackett. Welcome, everybody. For our agenda today, we'll be covering a little bit of news in terms of the Microsoft 365 platform. We will, as always, be doing our picture time together mode. So if you'd like to join in with us, we'd love to see your faces, be able to see all of our community members, everyone else who is joining in with us. Great to see you, as well as be able to share it with everyone else who is our participants today. In terms of our demos, we have three wonderful topics lined up today. We have Rowena and her team will be talking about the introduction to Microsoft Graph CLI, the command line interface. We also have Elise Yang and a few community members who will be demoing a couple of new updates to the Microsoft Graph Toolkit and latest releases information with that as well. And lastly, we'll have Harini talking a little bit about Microsoft List templates and being able to get started with those. So welcome all of our presenters. Thank you so much for being able to attend today, as well as all of our community members. As always, if you're looking to get involved with the Microsoft 365 developer platform, there's a number of different resources that you're able to go and take a look at, watch some videos, be able to join in with our community. First, we have the developer YouTube channel where you can go and see past videos that have been created. We do take the time to actually edit these down to just the snippets for our various community calls or the demos that are being done. So if you're looking for targeted information, you can quickly and easily go and find that information. Great way to be able to go and see that community calls and other information. We also have our community videos. So in terms of any of the community demonstrations that are being done, you can also find these out on our M365 PMP/videos. Great way to go and view those things. There are a number of different opportunities as well for open source. So if you'd like to join in, if you'd like to review content, if you'd like to submit some pull requests, there's a number of different locations on GitHub that you can go and plug in with that, whether it's with Microsoft Graph, Office Dev, PMP, or in SharePoint. A lot of great resources in there as well. We also hear a lot of times where people want to be able to see samples. So there's a number of different galleries that we have available for this. If you're looking for team samples, for SPFX, for just the Power Platform all up, a number of different locations you can see here as well on the screen. Feel free to take a look at those links, ways to get involved with those and see how you can actually go and deploy different samples. And also for kind of the landing page for everything that you want to be able to go and find, aka.ms/M365PMP. This is where you can go and find where all the different community calls are, where the different samples are linked to, reference documentation, and so forth. So kind of think of this as your one-stop shop, be able to go and find that content and be able to link out to it. If you are new to Microsoft 365 development and you want to be able to have a sandbox, or maybe you're an experienced developer and you just want to have a way to have a sandbox or get up to date on the latest information that's being shared for this, we do offer the Microsoft 365 developer program. As part of this, you get included with it a free E5 developer tenant. With this, you'll have 25 different users you'll be able to test against. And as long as you continue using that tenant, that'll actually self-renew for you. So a great way to be able to test out your solutions, to be able to work with sample data and a lot of other ways to kind of see what your environment will look like. Great way to get plugged in with that. So please take a look at aka.ms/M365/dev program. And if you are looking for those samples, I mentioned this link earlier, but you can go and see a number of different sample galleries, ways to see different things that Microsoft members have created, community members have contributed to. Again, lots of samples across a number of different technologies. You can find this at aka.ms/M365/samples. And also in terms of getting involved with the PMP community, there's a number of different initiatives that are coming up. Again, you can see on here different sessions that will be available for this. If you go to aka.ms/sharing-is-caring, there's a couple of different Ask Me Anythings specifically that are going to be coming up. One you can see today is going to be around the recognition program. So feel free to get looped into this, come join us on the regular basis. Lots of great information, a lot of great community contributions coming in through this. So if you're new to presenting or if you want to be able to get plugged in different areas, feel free to join into these and find out ways you can get involved. Also be aware that we have our Microsoft 365 developer podcast run by our own Jeremy Thake, as well as our MVPs, Paul Schaeflein. A great way to see interviews from various product group members, from community folks, seeing what things are being built or things that are going to be new in terms of Microsoft 365 developer platform. You can find this at m365devpodcast.com. Great way to be able to see, again, what things are going to be released or other interviews in our space. In terms of the latest news for the Microsoft 365 developer platform, you can find the blog for this, where we'll host various information throughout the week. Some of the recent information that has been released on this. We do have an update to the Microsoft Teams bot if you're working in multi-geo environments. So if you're familiar with in the past, we've had things like with SharePoint or OneDrive, where you can do multi-geo. We now also have considerations for that with Microsoft Teams as well. So great way to see information for that and how you may be able to respond to that things for bots or other areas. And also we had last week, I'm not sure if it's actually made it in under the wire or not, but we do have some changes to the Microsoft 365 usage reports. Previously, we would include information that may be kind of personally identifiable. Now there's actually a default for this where it'll be pseudo-anonymized. So a change will be going out. If you'd like to opt out of this, or if you'd like to see something differently in your environment, there is a way, more information that you can find on this on that blog post. And regarding all the different blogs that you'll see across Teams, across Graph, and SharePoint, and multiple other areas, you can go to aka.ms/m365dev/blog. This will find all the various informations, announcements, and then kind of posts as well up there. Great way to get plugged in too. And now we'll actually do our optional picture time.
No together mode picture today, unfortunately. So let's jump back on your screen, Brian, if you don't mind.
Yep. I will say, though, I love that the Teams team, they finally implemented in PowerPoint Live so that when you resume your presentation, they got a quick button just to go right back to where you were at. No need to hunt and peck for the slide that you were on previously. It's a big thank you to all those folks. All right, without further delay, we'll jump into our engineering team updates. So first things first, we'll lead with Elise, if you are free to continue with your presentation.
Sure, I can go.
Excellent.
Share my screen. Hello, everyone. Today I am here to talk about Microsoft Graph Toolkit's newest release. So this release is coming this week. It's not officially out yet, but we're planning to release it this week. And it'll be version 2.3. So one quick thing I wanted to highlight actually about this release is this is our first release where all of the new major features were contributed by our community members. So I just wanted to say a huge thank you to everyone who has contributed, whether you've contributed a feature or a bug fix, or you filed a bug for us to fix, or if you've left feedback or a feature request in your repository. All of that contributed to this release and wouldn't have been possible without it. So thank you. And for what's new in this release, we have two new major features. So the first is a Teams MSAL2 authentication provider. And then the second will be an addition of file upload to our file list component. So first for the Teams MSAL2 provider, so this was actually contributed by Simon. So thank you, Simon. He was unable to be here today to demo this for us, but huge thank you to Simon for contributing this. So this new provider is built on top of MSAL browser and uses the more secure authorization code flow. Our original Teams provider is actually based on MSAL.js and use the implicit grant flow. So this one is more secure, and we're going to recommend using this going forward. And an additional benefit of having this new Teams MSAL2 provider is that now it can support both the interactive login flow, which you've already seen with our original Teams provider, in addition to single sign-on. So now we have a single sign-on mode so that your users don't have to go through that login flow and sign in, and we can consent to that app. So here I just kind of have a quick code snippet of what it looks like to initialize this new provider. One thing to note is that if you are going to use SSO mode, you do need a backend service, and you need to provide the URL to that backend service in the SSO URL property. And this is how you configure your authentication. So for the interactive login flow, it's still the same. You don't need a backend service. You can just do the provider on your client, and it should work exactly as the original Teams provider works. Now that we have two Teams authentication providers, we recommend using the Teams MSAL2 provider going forward for your Teams applications. We'll continue supporting the original Teams provider until MSAL.js is supported, but we're not going to be putting any new development or features into that provider, and it will be all going into this Teams MSAL2 provider going forward. And with the release, we'll provide all of the migration documentation, as well as getting started guides for how to do SSO and set up a Teams application that uses this new provider. So for our second feature in this release, we have added a file upload feature to the file list component, which we released with our last release. So this was actually contributed by Andre. So thank you, Andre. And he's actually on this call to do a quick demo of this feature. So Andre, whenever you're ready, feel free to take over the screen.
So good morning, and thank you, Elise, for this small introduction itself. I will share my screen where we can see this new component. So basically, what is the main reason of this solution? So we try to use the Microsoft Graph Toolkit file list, and we create a subcomponent itself that will be able to upload the files can be to OneDrive or to SharePoint site. So what we do is just to use the same parameters that we define to use the file list to retrieve the information, and we just drop to the right place. For example, I will pick my local drive folder and I will pick some files. And if I drag and drop, I will be some actions. Basically, he will start to upload the files. Files, they are bigger, they take a little more time, and the file will be automatically uploaded. The moment we go to our OneDrive, the files will be updated. We can upload the files with folders and with their content, and we can always change this process. How it is activated on the new feature when it becomes available. So there is a new property, and here the first thing that we need to do is to define the scopes that we need to have access or to be able to upload the files. And for here, it's important that we have, for example, the files read write and the sites write well to be able to write and to upload the files itself. The second one is on the Microsoft Graph Toolkit file list. We have a new property that is called enable file upload. When we add this new property, the option to make upload of files will be activated on the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And with that, we have some additional properties that can be used for future validation. For example, we want to limit the number of files to be uploaded to 10 each time. We want to define what will be the maximum file size that we're going to upload, or we can define some exclusion files itself. Another simple example, what we can do with the Microsoft Graph Toolkit is, for example, I will pick a file that already exists, I will drag and drop, and he will ask me, you want to replace the file or you want to keep the file? If we want to keep the file, we're going to have this, a new file, but as you see, there is a 1 afterwards. So we keep the file, so we have 2 files, plus with the same content, but it's renamed with 1 itself. And with this very simple validation and with these properties, you'll be able to upload your files in a very straightforward to your OneDrive or to your SharePoint. It's important only to define the options that where you want to drop it. And this is a very simple example how we can make the upload of a file. And thank you, Elise, for the opportunity to make this component. And I give it to you now the call.
No, thank you for contributing this. This is great. So those are the 2 new major features that are included in this release. We also have a bunch of bug fixes as well as other improvements to our existing features, which will be fully documented in our release notes. So the release is coming this week, so keep your eye out on Twitter and on the Graph blog for the official announcement. And if you're interested in learning more about Microsoft Graph Toolkit in the meantime, our repository is at aka.ms/mgt, and you can leave any feedback, bugs, or feature requests as an issue there. Our documentation is aka.ms/mgt-docs. And we also have a bunch of getting started guides there as well to help you create your first application using the Microsoft Graph Toolkit. And then if you just want to kind of play around with the components and see what features are available without setting up your own dev environment, you can go to our component playground at mgt.dev.
Excellent information. Thank you so much, Elise. Thank you, Andre, for the demo. It's wonderful stuff to see. Really appreciate you coming on today to share about this, and look forward to seeing you again during your next release.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Next, we will turn things over to Harini. If you'd like to take the presentation, and the floor is yours.
Awesome. Hi, everyone. My name is Harini Saladi. I'm a PM on the Microsoft List team. I work on several different features within List, but my main areas of focus are the List app on web, all of the updated notification flows that you're seeing, most importantly, evolving the List templates ecosystem. And that's what I'm here to talk to you about today. We'll use the next 10 to 15 minutes to look at the journey that list templates have been on over this past year. We've had a lot of changes happen, but we'll mostly spend all of our time on the custom list templates feature, which is actually currently rolling out. It is 100% in first release right now and is slated to move to prod over the next couple of weeks. So having said that, let's get started. Before I dive into the feature itself, I wanted to kind of spend a little bit of time framing the vision that we have for the list templates ecosystem. And because of the nature of the call, I'm assuming that most of you know that we started rolling out updated Microsoft lists experiences late last year. And one of the updates that we made was to give users a new way to create lists from a set of out-of-the-box ready-made templates that would help them jumpstart common information tracking scenarios like issue tracking, asset management, travel requests, etc. And these scenario-specific templates also showcase the best of what lists have to offer to its users by way of formatting and other customization features. Now, this rolled out sometime like in November of last year, but after we rolled out, one of the most frequent customer feedback we got was, hey, these scenarios are great, but our organization needs this other scenario, and we wish we could make our own templates. So we kind of tried to react quickly to that feedback, and are now rolling out the custom list templates feature, which will allow organizations to create repeatable list solutions, not only in SharePoint, but also in Teams and the list app itself, and actually anywhere that list creation can happen. As we kind of work through the roadmap, our goal is to obviously create the right channels and opportunities for MVPs and all of our passionate community to contribute to this ecosystem. I mean, very similar to how we have list formatting samples and how community contributes to that. So please stay tuned as we figure out the logistics for that. And I'll be back in the next couple of weeks to kind of talk about what community engagement is going to look like in this space. But in the meantime, if you have any cool template ideas or if you have any feedback, please feel free to reach out to me through DPNP channels or through VESA, and let's connect offline for sure. So through this process, as we are kind of building out a template ecosystem, some of the principles that we are kind of hoping to take care of is that they'll always be like, all of the templates should be easy to be referenced from any endpoint. We want to make easy creation and publishing flows, and we also want to make it easy for admins to actually order and target users with the right templates from the catalog of templates that we're creating. Right now, if you are actually using list creation, then you should see, this is the experience that you should be seeing. These are our 8 out-of-the-box templates, and Teams also has like 3 more vertical specific templates. Now, kind of switching gears to the custom list templates feature. The water custom list templates, we already talked about it. It's essentially repeatable list solutions that your organization can create. And all the users of the organization can actually see that custom template show up as part of list creation flows. Right now, anybody can create the template JSON, but only global or SharePoint admins can actually upload these templates for end user consumption. And how does this work? Like, how can you actually create these templates? How can you upload them? It's a fairly simple process. We have kept it very consistent with the custom site templates experience. I'm sure Melissa Torres, who's the custom list site templates expert, has come into these calls and talked about this already. So we've kind of kept the process consistent with that experience, and we have just extended some of these site template partial commandlets to work for lists as well. So just like a quick gist, I'll kind of run through the demo right after I talk about it, but just a quick gist. You can extract the site script from any list using get SPO site script from list. And then you can just run add SPO site script and add SPO list design to add that custom list template to your organization. It'll just show up in any list creation flows that you have set up. And optionally, you can also scope who can actually see these templates using grant SPO site design rights. So that's that, and we've already talked about this, so I don't want to go into this. Before I jump into the demo, I also wanted to quickly talk about what's coming up after the custom list templates. right now, our team is working hard to make sure that out-of-the-box templates that you're seeing right now, the ones that come from Microsoft, can come packaged with flows and rules. For example, the issue tracker template that you see will have a rule that notifies whenever someone is assigned to an issue, and a flow that sends a due date notification if an issue is not resolved in time. And then once that rolls out, the custom list templates will get the same capabilities as above. And as I said, we have 8 out-of-the-box templates right now. We are hoping to scale that out to as many as 40 templates over the rest of the year. And those will roll out slowly over week by week as we kind of have them available. And then finally, as we scale up these out-of-the-box templates, we will have like some sort of a gallery view or a different place where all of the templates that are available for lists, and as well as community contributed templates that users can browse through in one place. The logistics of that we are still figuring out, but that's the vision, that we do want to have a place where all of the list templates are available to you for consumption and browsing. So that's the end of my presentation, but I'll kind of quickly jump into my demo. All right, so I'm here. I'm on this employee onboarding site, and the way to create lists from a site is to either do it on the homepage here. You can say plus new, and you have an option to create a list. You click on that, and you see this list creation experience. These are our out-of-the-box templates, as I was talking about. And once the custom list templates feature rolls out, you'll have a second tab called From Your Organization, which will house all of the custom templates that your organization has uploaded for you. Please ignore my test list one, but other than that, we have like 2 other templates called training sessions and workshop sessions, which users can click on and use just like how they would use an out-of-the-box template. Now, how did these templates get here, right? So for that, if you are a SharePoint admin or a global admin, all you need to do is you kind of log into PowerShell as administrator, then you can connect to this particular site. I'm just going to go ahead and connect to it. Once I'm connected, there are like, as I showed you in my presentation, there are just 3 simple commandlets to run. The first one, you can actually take any list and use get SPO site script from list and give the URL of the list to actually extract the site script from it. Because of how much time I have, I'm not going to kind of run through that experience. I already have the the site script extracted. And this is what, after extraction, this is what it's going to look like. It has all of the schema of that particular list. It has the description of the list. It has all of the columns and any views that you have. The one caveat is that the extraction script does not support lookup columns. That's one thing that we are still trying to add support for. So that's the caveat. And also newer features like rules and flows and anything else that is added on top of lists right now is not supported. We are adding support to the extraction script as we go forward. But right now it supports all of the columns, any calculated fields, all of the views that you have, and everything gets extracted into a really cool and neat JSON format like this. Now, once you have this JSON, all you have to do is actually, you can, here I'm just using get content to get all of the JSON from that particular file and piping it through to add SPO site script. I'm going to actually not call it test site script. Let's call it customer contacts. And then I'm going to go ahead and this particular a commandlet actually creates a site script from that particular JSON that I had already generated from the list. Go ahead and create it. Then, as you can see, it generates an ID for that site script. So I'm going to copy that because this is what I need to create the list design. So go ahead and I've already done this. So so next up, once you actually do the create the site script, you can go ahead and create the list design. You can title it whatever you want. Right now, whatever you show write up as the title here, I'm going to say customer contacts And then you kind of take the ID of the site script from the previous step and add it in here. And then you can describe it. You can leave it like essentially this is the variable that actually allows you to define what that particular template is going to be so that your users can consume it. So I'll say track all of your customer contacts from this list. And then you can give a color. I'm going to say orange and an icon. Lists already come with colors and icons that are associated with them. And then you can give it a thumbnail that can live in the site assets library or from a different location. And then just go ahead and add it in. And at this point, after having run that particular command, the list template should now show up on top of any of the list creation flows like I had previously shown you. So let's go ahead and fingers crossed it shows up. Sometimes live demos don't work. There it is. So I use the same image, but you can see I had added the customer contacts, track all of your customer contacts from this list. You click on it. Again, it is the exact same way that you would use the out-of-the-box templates. As you can see, the preview doesn't have any data here, but there is support to actually add sample data as well, so that that data shows up here. Then you would just go use a template, and I'll go ahead and create the list from there. And there you have it. So end-to-end, being able to extract the script from any list that you have, and then being able to upload it so any of your organization's users can use it and then create lists from it. So that was the end-to-end demo from my end. I'm hoping there are questions in the chat that I can go ahead and answer while Ruana is doing her presentation.
Now, before we go to Ruana,
yeah,
let me ask a few questions because we do have time here. So, Harini, there was a question related on APIs. So can we automate this from an API level? I can answer probably on that, or do you want to answer that?
I think like right now, most of the support is happening from a PowerShell commandlet perspective, and there are the existing APIs, REST APIs that we have will work as is, but we haven't added specific API support for all of the different ones that I showed you right now. So for example, I think the add SPO list design might not have an API associated with it, but we are working on creating that support over the next couple of weeks. So, and that is on our backlog, and it'll roll out. And as it happens, we'll kind of communicate to the community.
Excellent.
Did you want to add to that, Lisa?
No. That was precisely what I was about to say as well. So of course, some of this have a matching CSAM APIs, but they're not in the Microsoft Graph yet. And then we want to push them in Microsoft Graph, but all of that. So, but we're getting more and more clarity on that situation for sure in the docs and in the messaging. Thank you for that. Now, the other thing what I wanted to ask quickly, there was a question related on multilingual support. So anything what you want to comment on there? Multilingual support. What if you have multiple languages in use?
So the thing with that is that, like, so essentially when you're creating the template, it has to be in a certain language, and the template would then be used in that language only. And I think in order to have multi-language support for that, you will have to do a little bit more work with respect to adding the right. And our out-of-the-box templates have this, but for organizational, the custom list templates, we don't have that support yet. I might have to kind of go back to my team and maybe answer that once I confirm with them on what support we have in place for multi-language support.
Yeah, no worries on that one.
Yeah, yeah, we'll have to, I think Ralph was saying we have to save multiple languages. So yeah, you'll have to be, for different geos, you might have to do like different templates and say, this is the English one and this is the German one. But I mean, that's a workaround, but I'm kind of working with my team to figure out how multiple languages can be supported through the custom list template feature.
And Harini, if you have feature suggestions that community members looking to submit, do you have a place that you'd like to direct them to?
Not right now. We're kind of figuring out the logistics for that. And like Pesa and I have been in conversation about how we can make that happen. So I'm hoping I can come back. Once we figure that out, I'm hoping I can come back on the call like in the next couple of weeks. And then, we can make that happen.
Excellent.
Absolutely. Yep, Brian, sorry, take it away.
No worries. Thank you so much, Harini, for coming on to show us a little bit about Microsoft Lists. Love to see more about this in the coming weeks as you have more to share. So with that, we will turn things over to Rowena and her team to talk about the Microsoft Graph CLI.
Thank you, Brian. Okay, thanks everyone for your audience. My name is Rowena. I work with the developer experience team and the Graph team, and for the past couple of months, we've been working on bringing to you Graph CLI. And the Graph CLI here is our solution, our cross-platform command line interface that allows developers to access and use the Graph CLI. We are aware that there are already existing CLI ways to access the graph, but we really wanted to focus on a more simplistic way to access the graph that isn't particularly PowerShell. So knowing very well that PowerShell, we want to point out that our solution is definitely going to be based off of developer preference. And so we want to focus a lot on how to customize a CLI experience that allows our customers to be able to access the graph with the specific scenarios that they want to. And so far, that's what the alternative experience for developers look like. If you're looking for something that isn't PowerShell, that's lighter and more simplistic, less verbose, and a way that you can use any JSON command-based tool for the graph, this is our solution. We're still in the stages of really trying to define who the customers of the CLI are. We know these span across Azure admins, Office 365 admins, and DevSecOps developers. And so we're really trying to gather enough intel, gather enough data on what features would actually make a CLI experience to access the graph even better. So on the Azure CLI side, there is the deprecation of the Azure AD Graph API, which means that we will have customers who want to access the graph across the Azure platform and the graph one. So we're still trying to figure out what the scenarios for that is and get alignment on that level. So our journey has been a couple of months. We started off with just really trying to have a consistent experience for our Azure AD Graph users, plus also facilitate what the common scenarios for the graph are. So when we put out our first public preview, which is 0.1.6, we were really just focusing on covering the main scenarios for accessing the graph while trying to make sure that we have a consistent experience when it comes to command structures and file names. And so we've been working on making that improvement on how our command structures look like, how the file names are structured in the CLI. And so we do have some missing scenarios on the graph that aren't yet on the CLI, but that's going to be coming pretty soon on the next public preview. And it's also only available right now on Windows through MSI, and you can also just clone the CLI on our repo. But we're adding support for Mac OS and possibly Linux in this coming preview. And we also have added support for beta and third-party extension, which means that you can come in and have your custom extensions on the CLI. And again, based off of just customer feedback and testing, there will be improvements on the command structures. And we're also adding more code samples because we don't have our documentation already on the official graph docs. We have our samples on our repo at the moment. So we're working on making sure that our documentation is available, and we're going to be adding samples to help you get started with the CLI even faster. We're gonna run a demo for you, but for now, as I mentioned, other platforms are coming soon, but only now currently available on Windows. Yes, you can have app-only calls using the CLI, and we're using, this is primarily how our group command structure looks like. You can use James path to customize your output, and we have support for the more common scenario samples on our documentation in the repository. As I mentioned before, we're like in a unique place right now because we are trying to figure out the things that really matter to the users of the CLI and the experiences that would truly add value. So for now, our main call to action is to use the CLI, tell us what you think about it, tell us how you're using the CLI so that we can see what our next focus is on. We do have alignment with anybody who falls under the Azure admin, Office 365 admin platforms, and we're really trying to see what the next best shipping for the CLI is going to look like. So we're road mapping that process now. So your input would be super, super, super helpful for us at this stage. Right now, I'm gonna hand over to Sam, and Sam is gonna give us a demo of the CLI for a few minutes. But in the meantime, feel free to drop in questions as I will be able to see them now. Sam, feel free to take over the screen.
Thank you, Rina. Hello, everyone. My name is Samuel. I'm one of the developers in the Microsoft Graph Developer Experiences team. Our whole charter is essentially to produce SDKs and tools in different languages and to bring the complete set of functionality of the graph to as wide an audience as possible. So we're excited to announce the new Microsoft Graph CLI as part of this roster of tools. The CLI is a convenient way for users to call the APIs of Microsoft Graph, especially from the command line or in a scripted environment. As Rowena mentioned, we do have PowerShell SDK, which essentially allows you to call the Graph API from the command line. But in our bid to essentially meet developers where they are, we decided to come up with the CLI for users who may not prefer to work in a PowerShell environment. Maybe you want to work in Linux or, for example, using Docker, then the CLI would be the solution for you. So in my demo, I'll just walk you through the basics of using the CLI, how to perform actions on the graph using the CLI. And then hopefully with that in a small introduction, you can get time to test out the CLI and give us your feedback on how it works. So I'm just going to share my screen. So as Dorina mentioned, at this point, we have full support for Windows. Our team is working hard to roll out support for macOS, and then Linux and Docker will follow suit, hopefully by the end of the year. So at this point, the easiest way to get the CLI is to install the MSI from our releases. So if you go to our repo and our releases, you will find the MSI for the graph. So all you need to do is just download the MSI and install it on your machine, and then you'll be able to use the CLI. So for this demo, I'll just use a basic PowerShell window to show you the basics of the CLI and how you would use it. So to check that the CLI is available, all you need to do is run mgc command. We're using mgc as the entry point to the CLI. For those of you who are familiar with Azure CLI, you know that they use AZ as the entry point. For AMG, we're using for Microsoft Graph, we're using mgc. Initially, it was mg, but we found conflicts on the macOS platform with a micro GNU application, so we switched to mgc. You guys can also test out, and please feel free to give us feedback if you find this is not as intuitive as it could be. So to use the CLI, to check that the CLI is installed, you just run mgc, and what this will do, it will list for you a welcome message to the CLI, as well as list all the available subgroups and subcommands which correspond to the different services that are accessible on the graph using the CLI. You can check the version of the CLI installed just by running mgc version. And again, this will list for you the Python version that's running the CLI, the Python executable, as well as the version of the CLI, which in this case is 0.1.6. As is the convention with many command line interface, you can access help for any subcommand in the CLI using the help parameter. So to access the overall help, you just run mgc --help. So yeah, again, this would list for you all the available subgroups, and you can get help for specific either command or a command group by running mgc. For example, for applications, you would do mgc applications help. You can also use -h for short to access help, and then it would list for you all the subcommands that you can run within that command group and what each of those endpoints do. So as you can see here, by default, the CLI ships with V1 endpoints, but in our latest release, we also support users to essentially install beta extensions on demand. So all you need to do is just mgc add, and then you specify the extension. So it would, if it would be applications, it would be applications -beta, and then it would install that extension on demand. So before you can actually use the CLI, you will need to authenticate against the graph, and you can do this easily just by typing mgc login. So what this will do, by default, it would use the interactive browser authentication to log you into the CLI. So it would open a browser window, and for you to specify whichever account you want to log in. And then once you're logged in, if you close that window and go back to the CLI window, you would find logged in a message that you're logged in successfully. So the other thing you need to keep in mind is that before you can access specific workloads, you need to make sure that you have the necessary permissions to access that service. So if you want to access a functionality with regard to users, you would have to log in, and then using the scopes parameter, you have to essentially pass the scopes that you intend which correspond to the action that you intend to perform on that specific service. So if I want to get a list of all my users, then I would have to pass a scope for like user .read .all. So you don't need to log out again for you to run this. You can just run this if you're already logged in. And what this will do, if you haven't already consented to that permission, you would get it would take you to a window where you would consent to those specific scopes before then, and then you would go back to the CLI window and you can be able to run those commands. So in my case, I already had consented to those scopes, so it just automatically continued the current session. So now that I have the required scopes, I can go ahead and list the users within my specific tenant. So to do that, I would run mgc users and then user list. And what this would do, it would just essentially list out all the users in my tenant. And by default, I would get the list of users in JSON format by default. We do support output in different formats. So if I wanted the output in a table format, all I would need to do is add the output parameter, and then specify table format. So running the same command with that, running the same command with that, with specifying the output, to list the output in table format. So as you can see, you sometimes can get a lot of output, and probably you're interested in only a specific subset of that output. So to that, you can either use the select parameter. So if you want to get the display names, or the other thing that is alternatively you can use is using GemSpath query language for JSON. So to get the specific parameters that you want from that output. So to use GemSpath, let me just paste the command here to save time. So this command essentially uses the GemSpath query and specify that you only want the IDs and the display names of the users. So running this query would list for you only those specific properties that you're interested in. So GemSpath is one of the really big features of the CLI, because it allows you can run really complex queries against the CLI and get the feedback that you want in the specific format that you want. So for example, assuming you want to filter for a specific user, all you need to do is use the question mark GemSpath property, and then specify the specific keyword that you want to filter for, and specify the output, and you would get that back. So the other thing, you can manage essentially all the workloads that are available in the graph using the CLI. In the interest of time, I would not walk you through all the scenarios that you can use the CLI for. But if you go to our repo, you can be able to. We have our samples folder, and that essentially allows you to look at this gives you some of the samples, and with the different scenarios in which you can use the CLI. So what I would encourage each and every one of you is, if you have time, please download the CLI, test it out, try it out. We are really open to feedback. We are working to improve some of the command lines and essentially align them to how Azure commands look like. So in this preview stage at where we are, I would really encourage each one of you to just download the CLI, go to our repo, the samples folder, try out the different samples against your graph subscription, and please let us know how it works for you.
Excellent.
Thank you.
Samuel, Rowena, thank you so much for joining us and giving us a great demo of the CLI and what's all available with this. And since we are short on time, I will go ahead and share out the deck one last second. We'll go through our very final slides on here before we wrap up today. So as a note to everyone, we do have a number of different Microsoft 365 developer community calls that you can be able to join into. We have our Microsoft 365 platform call, one today, weekly on Tuesdays, as well as a number of other ones. You can find all links to these at aka.ms/m365pnp. And a note that our recording of today's session will be available on the Microsoft 365 Community PNP channel. You can find that at aka.ms/m365pnp/videos. That'll be available within the next 24 hours or so. Please do follow along with us on Twitter. We have Microsoft 365 Dev, as well as M365 PNP. Note that our next meeting will be on next Tuesday, September 14th, same time as usual, 8 to 9 a.m. Pacific time. And for any other information, again, feel free to visit the links that you saw in today. Really appreciate all of our presenters coming on today, between Elise, Andre, Arini, Rowena, Samuel, and everyone else. Really great to see everyone joining in. Thank you so much for the community. Appreciate everyone's feedback and time and attention today. Really, really greatly appreciated. Thanks so much today, everyone. We'll see you again next week.